magic in the air, wands roll around us, cast away our care. Friends in the hallways, adventures we find, spells and enchantments, trouble on our mind. That's so wizards, oh, 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 oh. Life is a spell we know. We're casting joy and glow, oh, oh. That's a wizard show.
Broadcasting live from Site B, located in the mythical town of Fresno, Nevada, which looks surprisingly like Ventura, where it's raining. It's Thursday. It's about 8 o'clock here at Site B. It's your boy, the oggm, joined as always by Steve the Cat. And you, a comment already? That's so wizard. Hi, Bob. Okay, so if you've been following my sarcasm for the past month, the running theme has been Wizards has not announced anything. Several YouTubers, several Dungeon tubers, several articles have mentioned how Wizards has not announced anything for 2026. And several of these have tried to tie in the new hires with the fact that Wizards has nothing planned for 2026. The problem, of course, was that Wizards has announced stuff for 2026. Remember the announcement of the crochet book that got everybody all up in, panties in a twirl? So I've been trying to make sense of what they mean, because there's at least 13 things, if you count the Dragonlance and Dark Sun as announcements. But as of yesterday, people were still saying Wizards has not announced anything for 2026. Well, this morning we have a DnDBeyound reveals partnered content schedule. Maybe this counts as announced. I don't know. How many more people are we going to say, oh, well, Wizards hasn't announced anything. They're hiring a bunch of new people. Doom and gloom, doom and gloom. It's like, look, guys, if you need reasons to be angry at Wizards, there's better ones. Stop making stuff up. They announced stuff. All right. So what is DnDBeyound partnered content, and how is it different than previous partnered content? The article is on, of course, DnDBeyound, and it says blah, 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 blah. Well, it doesn't say that, but, I wish there was a faster way to do this. Probably is with a better computer. All right, what does it say? We got this picture. Totally hand-drawn, no AI. Totally hand-drawn, no AI, as long as you ignore the two-headed tiefling and the person with a hand coming out of their nose. They're totally not AI. And this guy on the flying carpet's going to crash into that snake. Okay, so what does it say? It says, ongoing conversation about upcoming partner compat and our general vision of how we welcome partner creators to our platform, by Laura. Don't know who Laura is. How is this different than the previous partner content? That doesn't say. So this is what we have planned for Q1 2026. So that's pretty much today through whenever. The Eberron book, we knew this was coming. Keith Baker, he said, I'm done with Eberron, I'm handing it over. And then he went, no, wait, I'm going back to Eberron. This is history, cultures, religions, and philosophies of Eberron, more lore. I guess these will be only online for now on DnDBeyound. So if you want to check any of these out, you'll have to see them on DnDBeyound. These will not be printed. So does this count as an announcement if it's not a physical, or are they going to still say they didn't announce anything? New stuff for Eberron. How this relates to the other new stuff for Eberron, because we just got a new Eberron book, and there's tons of Eberron stuff on drive-through and Keith Baker's site directly. Don't know. The relationship between Keith Baker and Wizards has always been a little weird, because he releases independent Eberron stuff and Wizards releases Eberron stuff. And then last year he said he was done with Eberron. He was handing it to somebody else and he was going to work on a different project. And then later he said, no, I'm going back. So yes, this will not be a book yet. It's not to say we won't see it in a book in the future. Is there a big audience for DnDBeyound Eberron? Eberron has always felt like, it needed books. I don't know. I don't even know if Eberron's still popular. I mean, people still play Warforged, but is that setting still something that people are interested in? I can't remember the last time I saw it mentioned in an actual game. But whatever, moving on. Then we have in February the pugilist class. This is something that was originally on the D&D guild. And it's basically a class for fighter types where you can be a boxer or a brawler or a fist fighter. So it's a much more low key, non-magical puncher kicky guy as opposed to the D&D monk, who's just sort of a all over the kind of place, depending upon what you want to build your monk around. But we could have punchy monks, we could have flame throwing monks, we could have monks who do ninja stuff, we could have monks that turn into eagles. I don't know, I've lost track. But there's always that complaint that monks, as we imagine them, either in Western monks aren't martial artists, and the Shaolin monks or the the stuff you see on anime or Chinese wire theater doesn't, monks always been a weird class, right? It's been one of those classes where you're like, well, I mean, I want to do Dragon Ball and D&D, but yeah. So now we just have a straight punchy guy, no magical powers as far as I know. No link to the class to look at it deeper. I assume later on we'll have more in depth if we want to on what this is. But yeah, and then in late February we have Faster Purple Worm, Everybody Dies Volume 1. This is based upon the Beatles and Grimm comedy D&D podcast show. It's a bunch of chaotic one-shots from the comedy series. If you with maps, whatever. Die quickly, laugh loudly. I would say anything that is, trying to shove comedy down your throat. This is a deadly comedy adventure. Won't work. You can't force comedy. You can't say, oh, well, they've got to laugh here, because, well, what if they don't? What if they don't laugh? What if they don't find that funny? What if the triggering of the encounter doesn't work? You can't force it. Funny happens naturally, or it doesn't happen naturally. So, plus this was already announced for something else. So I think this has got to be different, because we know there was recently a release of Beatles and Grimm doing a collection hardback. Don't know. Again, is there an audience for this? How often does that come up in conversation? I mean, the only people who ever seem to talk about Beatles and Grimm is Beatles and Grimm. So far, the only thing I could think is the pugilist fight class might finally make a bunch of people happy who have always been arguing over punchy classes. Is that a word? Punchy classes? Can I use that? I'm using it. In March, we have Helena's Guide to Monster Hunting Part 2, which is a sequel to Helena's Guide to Monster Hunting Part 1, which was only on D&D Beyond. And this is now the second half of D&D Beyond. It's got monster hunting gameplay, so Delicious in Dungeon, Monster Hunter, Monster Tamers, stuff like that. So if that's, you might say, well, how is a guide to monster hunting different than just normally going out and whopping things over the head with my stick? Well, this, I believe, if it's following the Monster Hunter genre, will give you ideas of what to do with the parts. Like, I've killed this bear. Well, here, okay, you can use the claws to do this. You can use the brain to do that. You can make soup out of the innards. You can use the form. Same thing. You move up to what can I do with this dead chimera? What can I do with this dead bullite? Because the Monster Hunter video game was all about kill, harvest, make new stuff, kill bigger things, harvest, make new stuff. And the Delicious in Dungeon genre is all about eating the monsters. So this is part 2. Part 1, I guess, was last year. Don't know who Helena is. I guess they're maybe done using Volo for these guide to books, because that used to be a thing. The Volo books. You remember the Volo books? Volo's Guide to Daggerdale, Volo's Guide to Water, Volo's Guide to Magic Fish. But I guess he's not the guy anymore. Now it's Helena, whoever she is. And then we also have Griffin's Saddlebag, Book 1, 2024, late March, with Book 2 released last year. You released book 2 before book 1? That's got to be a typo. Here's the second half of the magic scroll. Well, where's the first half? Don't know. Well, I can't use the second half without the first half. Sucks to be you. That's got to be a typo, right? This is book 1 was last year and book 2 was this year. I mean, not that it matters. It's just magic items, so it doesn't really matter what order they're presented. But if Julia Child was your DM. Oh, that's not how you use Basilisk Guts. I'm afraid I'm going to have to dock you experience points. It's a horrible Julia Childs. I apologize. So just a book of magic items. So more magic items with illustrations. Don't know whether they even just need to be numbered, but I guess whatever. Books of magic items. And that's late March. This roadmap is subject to change. So nothing is set in stone, but these are these are pretty much on point, I would think. Now add to that, of course, the non-announcement of the Dark Sun book, which is announced for June if it's actually happening. Remember, that was one of the books that they claimed they didn't announce anything. We have a whole bunch of stuff with Penguin Random House that is being printed. I've been nipping at the cooking sherry. It's far too early for nipping at the cooking sherry, and I only drink beer, but I have already taken one painkiller today, so that could be it. Yeah, that's a horrible Julie Child. I apologize, Ghost of Julie Child. Now the big question is noticeably missing Dragonlance, because we know at the end of 2025 there was that picture of Joe and Margaret and some other people standing in front of the dragon at Wizards, and we knew that there is a Dragonlance project coming up with Joe Montiago. I don't know if that's the Dragonlance documentary that he was working on that got canceled, if it's a series of books, if it's a game, if it's whatever, but we know Joe loves Dragonlance, and I hate that Wizards getting their hands on it again. Maybe with those individuals involved, it will be shepherded the last way. Don't know a date for about that, so that's still 2026, 2027, but that was announced, as well as the crochet book and the 13 other titles that they've announced up till today. The question, of course, would be, will we still have people saying Wizard? Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, they probably have. Will the individuals who are claiming that Wizards has not announced anything now still claim that Wizards has not announced anything? Oh no, they hired a whole bunch of new people. Something must be happening. Oh no, they haven't announced anything yet. Something must be happening. Something bad must be happening. Or I don't know. What do we know about these new people? They're the one that they got hired yesterday. I don't understand the hiring process. We're hiring somebody that already works for us. Or maybe it was you were work for hire, but now you're permanently part-time work for hire because you're a D&D designer. And yeah, Double D went into depth on the new hire on his channel. We can, it's Wizards of the Coast. We can assume that the individual's politics will run pretty similar to what well, that might be what Joe and Margaret had planned. I don't know. There's a documentary, there's a TV series, there was some more books that they were thinking about. There was returning to the campaign and doing a re-release of the first 3 in some form. We just know that they're doing something Dragonlance, and has not been spoiled, but a lot of Dragonlance fans are excited. Of course, there's some trepidation because it's still Wizards, and you're like, okay, how can you mess up Dragonlance more? Same with anything else. Another question that, of course, came up was, well, what about Grayhawk? What are they doing with Grayhawk? They said they were going to do with Grayhawk. I doubt that's ever going to happen. Here's a nice shout out to another company who does treat us way better than Wizards. If you're interested in what's going on with Grayhawk, past, present, and future, just point your little clicker to Castles and Crusades, because as you know, Castles and Crusades Troll Lord Games owns the entire library of Gygax's past, present, and future World of Grayhawk stuff. Obviously, they can't use the word World of Grayhawk, but they just released Castle Grayhawk. Well, Castle Zaggy, but it's Castle Grayhawk. So I would not hang on for Wizards to do anything Grayhawk. I would just spend that money over at a company who, is much cooler, and just buy the Grayhawk stuff that they're making for Castles and Crusades. It's Grayhawk without the name, because we can't use the name because Wizards owns the names. Legolas only hired based on ideology. It follows. Yeah, diversity. We don't do any diversity hiring anymore. We just did a diversity hiring. We hired somebody who already worked for us, and they're just a D&D designer. Okay, that's not a job. We hired you as D&D designer. What other jobs do you have? It's the only job. Somewhere and then you made up jobs like Dungeons and Dragons architect, Dungeons and Dragons, whatever the other one was. I don't know. Anyways, so there you go. Wizards of the Coast news. Does those excite anybody? More magic items? Don't care. Monster stuff? Don't care. Don't care about this. I think there will be people who will be excited about this, because the monk versus punchy guy has been a long going argument. Again, I don't care. Eberron, that's very confusing. So there's got to be more to the story with this. What's going on behind the scenes with Eberron and Keith and Wizards, and him saying he was going to hand it off, and stuff that was going to be done with Eberron, and then now he's back doing Eberron again. But whatever. It's Wizards, so it's not like I'm going to be buying any of this stuff. But it's news, and I do have to report the Wizards of the Coast news. And the last time I reported Wizards of the Coast news, somebody said I was being unbelievably negative, even though I was unbelievably positive. And obviously that individual didn't actually watch the video. So there we go. Other than my usual sarcasm and my usual sarcastic tone of voice, which is just my tone of voice, I thought I was pretty positive. I didn't use any bad words or say anything too destructive about Wizards, but what can you dress? It's that guy from Canada and one of his 42 different puppet accounts. So make of it what you will. There's the partnered content schedule there. Are you happy? Wizards of the Coast has announced something. Okay, that's got to count, right? Because
Mischief in the classroom, potions gone astray, flying through the quad, now brighter every day. Laugh till we cry hard, sneaking out at night, cloaks in the moonlight, everything feels right.